I'm so glad you're with us on the Clark Howard Show, where it's about you. I want you to learn ideas from me so that you can keep more of what you make. You can follow me at facebook.com/Clark Howard, our web address, clark.com. That's CLARK.com. When you have a question for me, clark.com/ask. Today's Clarkrageous moment is not Clarkrageous at all. We're going to rave about a couple of things in a positive way. Enough negativity in the world. And later this hour, what are people doing on their phones? If they're kids, do you have any clue what your kids are doing on their phones? You'll be surprised what parents think they know versus what kids say is actually going on. A special warning for parents in order to better monitor what mischief might be occurring. Speaking of mischief, it has come to our attention that, what would I call these people? I'm trying to think of the right phraseology for it. I'll just tell you what's happening, and you can use your own thoughts about these folks. There are people that have taken a picture of mine, and I'm looking at one of them right now. There's a picture of me smiling in one of my golf shirts. And the headline says, consumer expert urges homeowners, take advantage of the cheap money, end quote. And they are taking my image, taking quotes from me, and making it seem like I am recommending or endorsing you going to a particular organization. It is all fabricated. I have nothing to do with it. I know nothing about these people, but it's all over the internet right now. I want you to know that this is a problem that I face every single day of my life. I have this service with Google where I can see how my image is being used every day, and I get in my daily feed at least a dozen cons every single day where people ripping people off are using my name as an entree to rip people off. It is infuriating and frustrating for me because then someone will think I was part of them getting ripped off and that I let them down, that they trusted me, and then they get ripped off. So here's what I want you to know. If you see anywhere on the web anything that looks like I endorse, recommend, whatever, anything, know that the internet, whether it's accessing digital on your phone, on a tablet, on a computer, on a desktop, a laptop, whatever, when you are in the digital space, it is an open environment with a lot of chaos and a lot of things being passed as fact and information that are propaganda and advertorials and advertisements. Do not believe when you see my mug somewhere that I really have recommended or endorsed whatever activity it is that's being promoted. Remember, I'm dealing with this a dozen times a day where people are using my image falsely. So if you're thinking, wow, Clark thinks this is a good idea. Oh, that's terrible. I'm talking about myself, third person. That I think something is a good idea. Please cross-reference and verify at clark.com before you click to sign up for something, spend money with somebody, or sign up for whatever program they're offering. Because the last thing in the world I would ever want to do is rip you off and somebody using my image falsely, stealing my image, creating false quotes from me. You just have no idea how upsetting that is. And the worst part of all is I never want you to be ripped off by somebody masquerading as me. Speaking of rip-offs, you've probably heard the new news about EpiPen, that EpiPen has come up with the most convoluted strategy to try to reduce the heat on them. First, last week, EpiPen, if you're not familiar, it's the life-saving medicine that treats anaphylactic shock, where people might get stung by a bee or they have a food allergy of some kind or environmental allergy that would kill them. The EpiPen is an incredible lifesaver. It's also a monopoly product. As I've heard from others, that is a false statement on my part. There is a loose kind of alternative available in the marketplace, but it is cheaper, but it's not as easy to use as an EpiPen. And it's an open market, but nobody is competing head-on with the EpiPen. And there are so many people, if they don't have an EpiPen, it's a choice that they're playing roulette with their lives, and they could be dead way before any medical assistance could be rendered. So last week, the EpiPen parent company, Mylan, did a thing where they said, okay, so we're going to give people these vouchers that in certain circumstances will get them a lower price on it. But we're going to keep the price up 600% from where it was. And that just got completely shot down in the public and the public opinion. And so now EpiPen has announced they're going to offer a second version of the EpiPen that will be a generic version of the EpiPen. They'll be the same exact thing, just under a different name at half the price. So two things about that. One, you know where all this fury came from? It's not from the 600% increase. It's from the fact that women on social media months ago started complaining about the pricing of EpiPen and started a massive publicity campaign from their own kitchen tables. And it started with just a couple of women, and it became a national potent force. The beauty that social media can offer is it can offer any of us a platform. The ugliness of that is a lot of times those platforms are spreading hate or distrust or whatever. But the power is there to harness, as these women did, to bring the issues to the table in time for people going back to school, which is so many EpiPens are purchased by parents. And it became a flashpoint of public protest that never could have happened prior to social media. And it shows the power of just an ordinary American to affect change. And I think that's very impressive. The other thing is that this whole fuss is all about the fact that monopolies are the problem. When there's any service or product that is a monopoly, it creates all kinds of chaos in the marketplace. It limits innovation, and it harms so many people. The real answer here is, even though this is a temporary reprieve for people, cutting the cost in half, the real answer is we need a new procedure for generics to be approved so that there will be competition in the marketplace. Right now, it is way too difficult, and the brand name pharmaceutical companies have a direct interest in keeping it too difficult for generics to be approved to compete in the marketplace, which is where we can really solve this. Because it's not just Mylan, it's not just EpiPen. This is a problem across the prescription drug marketplace. Tony is with us on the Clark Howard Show. Hello, Tony.
Yeah, hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So
it's always an important question to ask when somebody's calling about life insurance.
Sure, I'm really good. Thank you for asking. So I have a question regarding the whole life. I have currently 2 term policies, each worth $250K, and I was wondering, if it's a good idea to convert one of them to whole life. And if not, what is a good investment advice other than that?
Okay, so generally when you would convert a term insurance policy to whole life is when you medically are suspect as far as being able to get a new life insurance policy. The only time there's an advantage to whole life over term is that term is what it is. It's for a specific period of time. Do you have a level term policy for 15, 20, 30 years?
20 years.
20 years. So if you have a health condition that's made it that you can't qualify for a replacement policy for that after 20 years, the term policy will usually have a conversion privilege where, without going through what's known as medical underwriting, a physical screening, that you can convert to the much more expensive whole life policy. And that's really the only time or reason you would want to convert a term policy to whole life. Using insurance as a way to save in a tax-advantaged way, which is how it's often promoted, only applies, Tony, if you're earning massive amounts of money each year. Do you know what massive is for insurance purposes?
Nope.
Somewhere, I would say, around $375,000 a year or more, which is almost nobody.
Right.
So are you in that rarefied air earning a massive salary?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so keeping the term policies you have, and your health is okay?
Yes.
Keeping the term policies you have would be much more efficient use. What are you trying to save money for that you were thinking of using whole life to save money?
Basically for my family, my wife and my 1-year-old.
Oh, well, congratulations. Is your 1-year-old allowing you any sleep yet?
Not really, but
not yet. Sorry. Okay. So when I look at the ways you should provide for financial security for your child and for your wife and your family, you've already done the first part, having the level term insurance. And generally, you want to look at having level term equal or exceeding 10 times your annual income. So right now you have $500,000 worth of level term. And if that's less than 10 times your annual income, you may need to either buy a new policy to replace what you have that would be much larger, or you add on to it with another policy for a period of time that would fit what you're trying to insure. But as far as saving and investing for the future, it's a hierarchy of priorities. The first thing you do is the retirement plan you have available at work. If there's any employer match, you want to be in that. Is that an option for you?
Yes, I am on that. I have a 5% match, which I'm matching. Basically contributing.
So you're contributing 5%. They're matching it with another 5%.
Yes.
All right. So one of the easiest things to do is raise your contribution percentage, and you're building a better long-term financial future for you and your wife. And then as you move through, the next priority would be setting up a Roth IRA. One for your wife, one for you. And that you're allowed to put $5,500 a year in for each of you.
Okay.
And if you get to where you're maxing out the retirement plan at work, you're maxing out the Roths for each of you, and then you're thinking about your 1-year-old, the next priority, normally, if there's a culture in your family that college is going to be part of your 1-year-old's future, is you do a tax-free 529 college savings plan.
Okay.
As you hear, no insurance has ended up on the list at all, other than providing in the event of your untimely passing.
Sure.
So investing through the ways that the tax code is your friend, those are the priorities. Again, in order, the retirement plan you have at work, at least up to the match. Beyond that, either more in that or you do the Roth IRAs. You want to get ultimately, if you can, to where you max all 3 of those piles, your wife's Roth, your Roth, the 401k at work. And then the next thing would be the college savings plan. You can see my guide to 529 plans at clark.com. Today, I have an update on 2 prior Clark-rageous moments. One of them involves Sports Authority that, went bankrupt, went bust, and they sold off their customer information, people's email addresses, their profiles, all that. That went in the bankruptcy court auction for the amount I heard was $14 million. That's how much all the personal profiles that they had developed on people that shopped at Sports Authority was worth. Dick's Sporting Goods bought the profiles, and now in an amazing move, Dick's is offering you an opt-out where they will wipe out the information they bought on you. I already did it. It took me just a minute online to do so. If you get a stray email from them and you're like, why is Dick's Sporting Goods writing me? It may be because at some time in the past you shopped at Sports Authority and they developed this deep profile on you. It goes from thin to deep. But there's a number you can call that we have at Clark.com and the website where you can opt out of your information being used by Dick's, and they will delete it. Second thing involves Facebook, which we talked about a long time ago, where there was a controversy that their human curators were posting news stories to prominently have in people's Facebook feeds that had a big political slant to the left. And Facebook ultimately eliminated the humans and is allowing computers to curate the stories. Unfortunately, the cure may have been worse than the disease. All kinds of phony stories and stories slandering people or organizations are now appearing in people's feeds that have never been checked by humans. There's a step somewhere in between with humans that need to be involved. And look for all the phony articles. Look out for them, I should say.
Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans proudly supports this podcast. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage approval process into the 21st century. It's fast, powerful, and completely online. You see, Rocket Mortgage has taken all the complicated, time-consuming parts of applying for a mortgage out of the equation. Hate searching through stacks of old files and paperwork? Well, with Rocket Mortgage, you can easily share your bank statements and pay stubs at the touch of a button. It helps you get approved in minutes for a custom mortgage solution that's been tailored to your unique financial situation. Even better, with Rocket Mortgage, you can do all of this on your phone or tablet. It's a quick online process that you can manage from the convenience of your couch. So if you're looking to refinance your mortgage or buy a home, check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/save. That's quickenloans.com/SAVE. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Welcome to the Clark Howard Show, where it's about you learning ways to save more and spend less. And don't let anybody ever rip you off. Our web address, clark.com, CLARK.com. When you have a question, clark.com/ask. Parents, we are more clueless than we might have thought. This is amazing what parents think is going on with their kids and what's really going on. Two entirely different things. There was a survey done by Microsoft and the National Cybersecurity Alliance that found what they refer to as the digital disconnect with teenagers and what they're doing with their phones, laptops, tablets, what they're doing versus what we think they're doing. So when teens were asked, nearly 2/3 said that they have online accounts their parents don't know exist. In fact, just a little over 1 in 10 teenagers said their parents are aware, the words fully aware, of their online activities. Survey went on to find that parents are completely clueless, that 3/4 of parents are completely off base, thinking they know what's going on with their kids when it comes to digital, and 3/4 are completely in the realm of clueless. So here's how bad it gets. So you got kids saying, 9 out of 10 kids approximately saying that their parents aren't aware of what they're up to. The parents, on the other hand, a majority of parents think They are absolutely sure that they know what their kids are up to online. Absolutely sure. And parents overwhelmingly have a rule that their kids need permission from them to go to various social activities on the web, to have various social platforms on the web. The kids, when they're asked the same question, now the parents overwhelmingly say that there are those rules in place. When the same kids are asked, only 3 in 10 said there were any rules. So parents are pretending that they're restricting their kids' activities online, or at least aware of their kids' activities online, and they're not at all. The reason this is important, and the reason I wanted to talk about it, is that as a parent, what you don't know has the potential to be harmful to your kids. Because there's a lot of nastiness that goes on in the teen years on social media. And if kids are being really harsh to your kid online, and you're not even aware this is something they're going through, and you don't even know what they're doing, or the ugliness coming their way, how are you going to be able to help and counsel? Because it can lead to a kid being very despondent. They can be depressed. They can have anxiety issues, all based on what other kids are saying about them and to them online. And that's not even bringing into the conversation the content that's available instantly with the click of a mouse on a computer. Again, as so often as parents, we'd rather not think about this stuff because then we have to deal with it. Deal with it. And, you know, it is my belief that even when a kid is very unhappy with you and combative, when you're talking to them about their activities, there's a level where the kids are very appreciative. And they may show hostility to you, inquiring or setting down rules. But for the most part, teenagers do value, even if they don't realize it consciously, subconsciously, they value rules being set in place and a referee being on the job. You are the referee. You're not their buddy. You're their parent. Ryan is with us on the Clark Howard Show. Hi, Ryan.
Clark, how are you?
Great, thank you. You're thinking about taking a rental property and popping it on Airbnb. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so my wife and I'm 38, my wife's 35. We live in the Denver area, and of course we have access to those great ski resorts up there in the mountains. And we're interested in purchasing one of these condos where we could rent out for short term, and just wanted to see if our numbers might work and get your advice.
Well, people are having enormous success in Colorado and Utah renting out properties on Airbnb and VRBO. And the money you can make during the season is so high, particularly if you allow rentals, not personal use, but rentals during all the peak holidays, like over Christmas, New Year's, over President's Day weekend, King Day weekend, spring break weekends and weeks. You can make so much money those weeks that you can pretty much cover the cost of owning the place and have a place that you can also use during times it's not rented.
And that's exactly what we were thinking, and I just want to make sure we might not be taking on too much risk here. We do own a primary residence that we have a mortgage on, and we also have a rental unit in Chicago that has a mortgage on that as well.
Well, the biggest danger, and it's something that I've been alert to for a while, and I've tried to make part of the decision-making process when you're looking at an investment property, is more and more communities, and in the case of a condo associations, are banning Airbnb rentals and VRBO rentals. They're banning short-term rentals, because people who live in places full-time are very unhappy about the transients coming through like in a hotel. Right. So the danger for you and your wife is you take on yet a third real estate obligation, and it's based on being able to make money with these short-term rentals, and then you get blindsided that suddenly the short-term rentals are banned, and your mortgage isn't banned at that point on the property. You still have to pay it. So there's a test that I like for you and anyone else looking at investment real estate to consider now. Can you and your wife make money on this, Ryan, if Airbnb and VRBO are banned, or short-term rentals are banned, and you are left with only being able to rent to long-term tenants? Could you cover your cost with the rent you could effectively charge to a long-term renter? If the answer to that is I don't know or no, then the risk is too high.
Right. I heard that advice from you recently, and the numbers I ran, it's probably $200 or $300 a month in the positive on a cash flow basis for a long-term rental, and more like $700 or $800 a month with those short-term rentals. So I didn't know if $200 or $300 was enough of a buffer to really take on that risk. Well,
the advantage over time is that the property is steadily paid off by the tenants, by the income they're generating, and you are creating a get-rich-slow kind of environment with that rental property. Having two properties with mortgages already, you're putting yourself into some level of risk with debts. If you, let's say you ended up with this property vacant for whatever reason for 6 months, and you had no income coming in, what would happen to your and your wife's finances?
We have about $200,000 in long-term investments outside of retirement.
Then if you want to buy that property, go right ahead.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I just want to say thank you, Clark, to you and your team for everything you do every day. It's helped my family tremendously, and we're very grateful for that.
Well, you are so kind. And what's your favorite ski mountain?
Well, I'll probably put off some people by not naming the right one, but I definitely love Breckenridge. It's probably my favorite up there.
Oh, Breck is great and has such great nightlife.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, good. My favorite is Copper Mountain. Do you know why Copper Mountain?
No. Why is that?
Because there are discount vouchers you can get for the lift tickets.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, could there be any other reason besides the fact that it's a great mountain?
Fantastic. Yeah, being a local, we know all about those fantastic deals. So we love it. And, I think we're going to look hard at this opportunity.
All right. Maybe I'll see you on the ski mountain one day, Ryan. You'll see the person who's always looking like they're out of control. That would be me. Dustin's with us on the Clark Howard Show. Hi, Dustin.
Hi, Clark. How are you? Thanks for taking my call.
Well, it's great to have you here. You are in the process of trying to pay down debt. How can I be of service with that?
So I've been listening to your show for a little over a year now, and you've really inspired me to be an entrepreneur. At the same time, my wife and I are aggressively paying down debt, and I wanted your advice on if you think I should focus on being an entrepreneur, which doesn't really pay anything right away, or focus on working as hard as we can to make extra money to pay down that debt and then eventually be an entrepreneur.
If you're giving me option A and B without more information, I'd right away say B.
Okay.
Because when you become an entrepreneur, when you're starting your own business, it costs more than you expect, and the demands on available cash as you get into the business and the business starts to be successful, the demands for cash actually rise, not fall, as your business starts to book more and more revenue. The expenses for a while can outrun the revenue, and so if you go into it having personal debt, you can end up in a real squeeze play. So I like a whole lot better the idea, just in general, of focusing on paying down debt, and as your graduation gift from getting rid of it, that's when you then are freed up to follow that entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay. So I intend on doing a side business of designing energy-efficient homes, which I know you're a big fan of, which doesn't really have much startup cost. It's pretty much just using the software and networking with people and selling plans initially until I could build my way up and then, network with contractors and build it. So it's not really much cost at the beginning, but it would keep me out of working extra hours or working another job that would pay more. So do you still think I should?
Because let's talk about the levels of debt. What level of debt do you have versus income?
Right now we have $123,000 worth of debt left. We make about $103,000 total, plus a little bit of overtime. And we paid off $30,000 in the past year.
And this is not mortgage debt. This is personal debt?
Primarily student loans.
I then would say even more that you should concentrate on paying down the debt.
Okay.
Because the market opportunity with creating energy efficiency in homes is not going away. Everybody talks about, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, talking about solar and wind and all the alternative energies that are growing in popularity. But the greatest energy tool we have in the country is reducing the need for those kilowatts in the first place. What you want to do as a business. It's not as sexy to people as seeing the panels or the wind turbine or whatever. But the reality is the quickest money to pick up and the greatest return is what you're talking about doing. But I think with student loan debt that exceeds annual income, the emphasis for now should be on attacking that student loan debt.
All right.
Because you got the rest of your life that when you look at the average age of homes in the United States, which we have the average oldest housing stock since such records have ever been kept, there are endless opportunities for retrofitting. There's a lot of opportunity sticks up to build homes more efficient. There is a huge business opportunity there. But you got to get the things in the right order, and I'd say the debt is the higher priority. Robert's with us on the Clark Howard Show. Hi, Robert. How are you doing today?
How are you, Clark? Thank you for taking my call. Much appreciated.
Well, glad to have you here. You bought a new SUV. Are you having fun with it?
I absolutely love it because I always had to drive vans my whole life because I always ran a little business.
Well, my oldest brother has the same SUV as you have. And he was whining to me a couple of days ago that he's averaging 13.1 miles per gallon. What are you averaging in yours?
Right now, my best is 24, and my average is 17.5.
17.5. So my brother must have a lead foot.
Yeah, he's stepping down a little hard on the gas, probably.
All right. Well, how can I be of service to you with your new SUV?
Well, I'm concerned. It has a lot of electronics and a lot of intelligence in it besides the powertrain, and they offered me an extended warranty, and they said I had time to think about it, and I told them that I would like to think about it, and the dealership offered the warranty, and it was $2,100 with a $100 deductible.
And do you know, is that the manufacturer's own or is that a third party?
I believe it's a third party.
Don't even consider a third party.
Okay.
If you do buy one, and I'm neutral on these car warranties, buy the manufacturer's own. The problem with the ones peddled that are these third-party marketing things is too many have been subject to what are known as bust-outs. They'll collect premiums for a couple of years, and before they are in a position they have to start paying out, they disappear in the night with everybody's money. And it's just happened again and again and again. And who you want standing behind it is the same manufacturer whose original warranty you have, where the extension of that warranty works hand in hand.
I see. So even if it's a few dollars more, it's worth it because they'll be there when you need them.
That's the idea. And
thank you.
And on the reliability, the vehicle you bought, even though it's really fun to have, its predicted reliability is much worse than average.
Okay.
And because of that, that would make it a thing you should consider buying the extension of the warranty. But check with the manufacturer, because normally you will have through the first 36,000 miles or 3 years, whichever comes first, to make the decision to add on the manufacturer's warranty. And you're usually better off letting the clock run because you never know what happens in a 3-year period. You know, something could happen that you might sell it, or it could you could be in a wreck with it or whatever, and you've already paid this cost for a warranty that hadn't even kicked in yet.
I see. That's a great idea. So I should wait a little bit?
Yeah, but check with the manufacturer to see what their deadline is. It could even be 12 months, 12,000 miles. You just got to know that up front.
You know, there's something about TrueCar that a lot of people don't even know. Here it is. Using TrueCar can also help you buy a used car. That's right. In fact, there are over 500,000 pre-owned vehicles available from TrueCar's certified dealers nationwide. So whether you're looking to buy a brand new car or a used car, you can get all the upfront pricing information that empowers you. You can also get discounts off the list price for used cars and a totally better buying experience through the TrueCar certified dealer network. That's where you'll see what other people paid for the car that you want, so you know you're getting a fair price and you can feel confident. And with TrueCar, you connect with a local certified dealer of your choice, so you can enjoy a quick, easy buying experience. You can use the TrueCar website or the TrueCar app, so it's easy to find the new or used car that you want. You just take your guaranteed savings certificate to a TrueCar certified dealer, and you'll save money on that used car. And if you're buying new, the average TrueCar user saves $3,279 off MSRP. Over 2 million people have already bought their cars through the TrueCar certified dealer network. So if you're ready to buy a new or used car, visit TrueCar.com or take it with you by downloading the TrueCar app and enjoy a better car buying experience. Some features are not available in all states.
I'm glad you've joined us today on the Clark Howard Show, where it's all about your empowerment with knowledge that'll help you keep more of what you make. On the web, we serve you at Clark.com. Clark is spelled C-L-A-R-K. Clark.com. You got a question for me? Clark.com/ask. Half hour from now, I'm going to talk about a common ripoff if you ever rent a car. It happens most often to people who occasionally rent a car. It's when you think you're paying one thing, when you return the car, the bill is entirely different. There's a gotcha you need to know about. I rent about 30 cars a year. I see this gotcha myself about 10% of the time. I'll tell you what you need to know to avoid getting ripped off in just 30 minutes. I am so thrilled that the cost of investing is we overwhelmingly now are responsible for our own financial futures. The percent of us that have pensions dropping to almost nobody. And so now who you have to rely upon and depend on for financial security, and if you wish to retire someday, is me, myself, and I. The problem has been historically that if you as an individual are trying to do investing, is that it's so confusing for many people, or intimidating, or boring, or it's just not your thing, that even if you put money aside, a lot of it gets taken away from you in enormous fees and ongoing expenses. But the great news is that if you do pay attention to the cost of the investment, which ultimately has so much to do, maybe the most to do, with how much money your money will grow to over time, it is the easiest ever for you to get those costs down. The latest and greatest involves something that, if you've ever looked at my investment guide at Clark.com, you've seen me talk about target retirement funds, where instead of you having to worry about what your money's invested in at various stages of your life, you just pick the year closest to when you're going to retire and you put your money into it. You might buy, let's say you're 45 years old, you might buy a target retirement fund for year 2035, as an example. Whatever your age is, your intended time to retire, you buy a year close to that, because these are typically sold in 5-year increments. Well, when these target retirement funds first came out, the companies peddling them were charging enormous fees on them. It wasn't at all unusual for you to have to pay 1.5% of the value of your account each year in management expenses. Today, the average in the country is 0.75 of a point, half of that. But there are still people paying huge amounts for the Target Retirement Fund. You don't need any expert that you're paying a commission to or anything like that. If you're going into a Target Retirement Fund, the fund itself is your expert, adjusting the mix of investments as you age to make it steadily more conservative and hopefully having it widely enough diversified so that when stock markets tank, because they always go up and down like a yo-yo, that they are diversified enough to lessen the pain in the short term and give you nice gain over the long term. But the cost equation is where you can really make a difference. And the costs are coming down, down, down. And there's a price war going on in it, just like there has been with their cousins' index funds, where you just buy something that holds like all the large companies in the country or all the companies in the country, little teeny pieces of them. The Target Retirement Fund thing, the price cutting really happened because of Vanguard. And Vanguard has cut the cost for you having your money in one down to something like 1/5 of a point per year, somewhere in that territory. But now Schwab has significantly undercut Vanguard. And Schwab is offering Target Retirement Funds at the lowest cost I've seen, as low as 1/10 of 1% of your money going to the management fee. So you think about this. In a world where the returns on money are so small right now, if you're in the typical Target Retirement Fund that you're paying 0.75% to be in per year, or you go into one of the low-cost choices that are 0.5 point less per year or more, even cheaper than that, that 0.5 point over the years leads to huge additional money for you for retirement. You know, the first decision you've got to make is that you're going to save. The second decision is to look at where you're going to save, going to a low-cost provider. And then the third decision is that you go into, if you're not really into investing, to go into a simple choice like the Target Retirement Fund. You save that money for your future to give yourself choices. And that's key. You know, we had this past Friday on our Clark Stink segment, we had somebody who was very unhappy with me, feeling like I'm trying to be everybody's nanny, you know, trying to get people to save. And that if people don't want to save, that's on them, and so what? I'm paraphrasing. But the idea that it is a personal choice, which it is. If you don't want to save for your future, that's fine. And there are people that that's not your thing. And you love working or whatever, and you're happy to work till the last breath you take on this earth. But I believe that you buy yourself more freedom and more choices when you do save for the future. Even if you never do want to retire. Nobody here is going to ever let me retire. Isn't that right, Krista? No retirement for me?
No way.
Never? What about if I start losing it and I don't even remember where I am?
You're still going to have your memory, I have a feeling.
You think so?
Yes.
Graham is with us on the Clark Howard Show. Hi, Graham.
Oh, good morning, Clark, or good afternoon where you are.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So you want to save money on technology?
Oh, yeah.
What are you thinking?
Well, when I finished the company that I worked for 28 years, I was on my own with a cell phone and all the rest of the stuff that goes with it. So the first company I used was Consumer Cellular, and that worked out pretty good.
People love Consumer Cellular. They don't like Consumer Cellular. They love it. It's supposed to be the best customer service of any cell phone provider in the United States.
Yeah, the customer service is really good if you ever have to call them. But I found another company called US Mobile, and I've got exactly the same plan that I had with Consumer, but I'm only paying $22.79 a month.
And US Mobile is one of the companies that puts up a choice chart, is what I like to call it, and you choose how many minutes you want to talk a month, and they've got a scale, and you just pick how much you're going to pay per month based on how many minutes you need. And then with texting, you pick how much you want to pay per month for text, and with data, the same thing. So you mix and match based on your patterns, and typically somebody will end up with a bill around $20 or so a month. But
yeah, that's what I'm finding.
But it's not for somebody who is someone who is a dataholic. Somebody who's on a smartphone all the time. It's going to get to be pretty pricey on US Mobile.
That's true, and maybe the customer service is not as good. So if you're not self-sufficient, maybe that's not the place to go. But I've had it now for 7 or 8 months. I know 2 other people, and it's working out really well.
So, Graham, I have never, ever had a complaint or a compliment about US Mobile. They're one of those smaller cell phone providers that is just not even on the radar, because the way somebody comes on my radar is they're either offering something truly extraordinary or they are usually extraordinarily bad in the customer service, which is how I keep hearing about them. And they're neither. But
yeah,
it's a really comfortable amount for your cell phone bill.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I enjoy it. Plus, if you're getting close to the end of the month and you're about to run out, you can buy 100 megabytes for $2. And you can go and do that every day until you get to the end of your month.
All right, so how long have you been in the United States, Graham?
35 years, I think.
All right, so this whole phone call, you've been driving me crazy trying to figure out where in the former British Empire you were from. In the last couple of sentences you did, suddenly I decided you were an Australian.
Well, I'm from what we call the Wise Islands.
Kiwi. You're a Kiwi, huh?
No, the Wise Islands. Wales Island, Scotland, England.
No, really? Oh, man,
yeah,
really. I got it wrong. You know, once somebody's been here enough, it gets really hard to tell.
Yeah, I know. I get Australian every day. But, no, I'm from southeast of England.
All right. Well, and it may soon be just England, right? Brexit.
Yeah, it's going to change pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the suggestion about US Mobile, because, again, you were the first person, Graham, ever to bring them up. Brooke is with us on the Clark Howard Show. Hello, Brooke.
Hello, how are you?
Great, thank you. You want to talk about your mortgage?
Yes, I do.
What's the story?
Well, we have a 10-year mortgage that's up in 7 years. And
you actually took out a 10-year mortgage?
Yes.
You are my hero.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's got a 2.7% at the moment. And we're going to be here at least 6 or 7 more years before we decide if we're moving or not. My question was, should I refinance it? Like maybe do a 15 and then invest the money we save? Or
no way.
Leave it alone?
Leave it alone.
Okay.
Even though 15-year refis for people with great credit are down right about where you're paying on the 10-year,
right?
There's no necessary move. You got 7 years left. You're going to be completely mortgage debt free in a 7-year cycle. You're building up, at this point, you're building up enormous equity every single month.
Right.
And it would take you into reverse, adding 8 years back into the loan.
Okay.
You're going to have closing costs to be at the same rate you're already at. And so you are, think of it this way, you are investing in your future with every single monthly payment you make. You're Okay, I just thought about this. Do you know the fastest growing part of the car market are people taking out 7-year car loans?
Oh, my.
You are now in a mortgage that's basically a 7-year car loan.
True.
So I would just pay as agreed and know that you are absolutely doing a great thing for your long-term financial security.
All right, then. I will leave it alone. Thank you.
All right. Best to you. And again, it is such a neat thing if you're in a position when you refi, if you can go into a 10-year loan, that's something credit unions specialize in, you get these extraordinarily great rates and such a quick pay down of debt on a straight trend line to being completely debt-free. Here on the Clark Howard Show, I want to answer your question so many ways. One thing we offer is where you can get free off-the-air advice from members of our team. It's a service we've offered since 1993, where you can get free off-the-air advice from a member of Team Clark. We do this 9 hours each weekday, and you can see how to call in at clark.com. And if you don't have free long-distance calling, depending on where you are in the country, it might cost you money, but most people have free long-distance. Joel, though, we also have a segment Joel does called Ask Clark, where you post a question at clark.com, and then Joel asks the question for you. Who do you have one from?
Clark, Rob wants to know, how do I go about freezing my child's credit?
Child credit freeze is more difficult than credit freeze is for an adult, but children are, by one estimate, 35 times more likely to have their identity stolen than an adult because it's really an easy process for a criminal and often isn't discovered for years, maybe a decade or more, because kids aren't out applying for credit. So Equifax, alone of the major credit bureaus, is allowing people in any of the 50 states to freeze a child's credit. And Experian and TransUnion have not. I've been very surprised. I thought both of them would follow Equifax on this, but they are only doing so in the roughly half of states that permit child credit freeze. So at a minimum, you can freeze your child's Equifax file, and at a maximum, if you're in one of the half of the states that offer child credit freeze, you can do so with the other two bureaus as well. I said the procedure is more difficult than for an adult because if you're going to freeze a minor child's identity, additional work is required on your part, including sending in stuff old-fashioned way, filling out forms and sending it in through the post office, but protecting your child for years and years till they reach adulthood is a great idea. At clark.com, you can see my child credit freeze guide. Just search for child credit freeze in our search box, skip the ads, and get to the guide.
All right, Clark. Tom says, I've been paying for identity protection service, but from listening to you, it seems like that might be a financial mistake. What do you think?
I don't think you need to pay for identity theft monitoring at all anymore. There are several organizations that provide free ID monitoring, and we have that also at clark.com where you can see, including civic.com. Check it out.
Stay tuned for 60 seconds of AP News headlines right after this podcast.
Welcome to the Clark Howard Show, where it's about you learning ways to save more and spend less, and don't let anyone ever rip you off. We serve you at facebook.com/Clark Howard, our web address clark.com, which is spelled CLARK.com. Got a question for me? Go to clark.com/ask. I rent cars roughly 30 times a year. And I know that's much more than most people rent a car. Some people never rent a car, but most people who rent cars rent them 2 or 3 times a year. The less you rent, the more likely it is you're going to get ripped off at the rental counter. The people that work at the rental counters are under enormous pressure to sell you add-on junk. The most common junk are pseudo insurance type things that costs many times what the actual rental is per day. And I've been told by people who work at the counter that I'm just killing them because they're under a quota how many people they have to get to buy the junk each day. In addition, at many car rental agencies, people are commissioned for all the add-on junk that they sell. And they may make a very low wage per hour, but they make their money selling the add-on fake stuff. The most common is something called PDW, LDW, or CDW, which covers damage to the car regardless of fault while you have it. Now, most people, overwhelmingly, people are covered by their own automobile insurance for CDW, LDW, PDW. But at the counter, they'll tell you, oh, no, you've got to have it, blah, 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 blah. And even if your own insurer doesn't provide enough coverage, the credit card you use to rent the car normally will cover you for temporary use of a rental car, defined by some as 14 days, some by 15 days of continuous use of a rental car. And then there are other add-ons. By the time you're done, you could take a car you booked for $30 a day and make it $80 a day. But I want to tell you about a problem going on in the business, and that is where people knowingly cheat you, and this is how it works. So when you are signing a car rental agreement, either on an electronic screen or on a piece of paper, they'll say initial here, initial here, initial here, initial here, sign here, initial here, blah, 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 sign there. So what is going on is a really dirty business where you may decline collision damage waiver. You may decline excess liability. You may decline personal effects coverage. You may decline each of these things, the fuel filling option, blah, 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 blah. Well, what the person will do is, knowing you're harried, knowing you're in a hurry, they will actually check the wrong box all the way down on purpose. It happens to me again. I rent probably 30 cars a year, 2 to 4 times a year. I always look because I know to look for this. The person has done that and they say, oh, my mistake. And they print out a new contract, or in the case of the computer, if it's you sign on a screen, they'll change that. This is not an accident. This is not an honest error. This is dishonest thievery. What you need to know is, before you initial here, initial there, initial everywhere, you need to see if you're declining or accepting. Because the problem is, when you get back returning your car, you have inadvertently accepted what you did not intend to accept. And you then owe the money, which can run into hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So you need to be aware of this ripoff when you go to rent a car. But it all starts with you making necessary inquiries or phone calls to see if you were first covered by your own automobile insurance for temporary use of a rental car, and to use a credit card you carry that provides backup coverage for the rental car for whatever your own insurance does not cover. And you do those things up front, you eliminate a lot of hassle. But remember, this is one case where you don't have to read all the pages of everything the car rental company is not going to do for you in every way they're going to ruin your life. You don't have to read all that. Just make sure where you're initialing that you're initialing the decline, not the accept. Kevin is with us on the Clark Howard Show. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Clark. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, great to have you here. You want to talk about car rentals.
I do. So we do a guys' weekend every year in northern Wisconsin. I have a friend that is flying into Minneapolis and renting a car, and he's not very internet savvy, so I said I would do the booking for him. So I typically go to one of the discount websites where you find out the car rental place after the fact. And when I was doing my search, because he's getting in the morning and leaving at night on his return, there is an extra day involved. So typically, when you see a car rental, you pick it up and return it at the same time. Now, the rate that they gave me was $249 for the extra 6 hours on the back end. But in doing some additional searching, if I picked it up and returned it at the same time, the price dropped to $158. So I was just curious, why is there a big jump for that extra 6 hours, I guess, of time? Because I also did a one-day search just for picking up and dropping off the same day, and it was rather cheap. So I don't know if you have any insight on why that.
Right. So the likeliest explanation, we'll talk this through. Do you bleed past noon on Monday on the return of that vehicle?
No, I will be picking it up on a Wednesday and returning it Wednesday at 9 a.m. and returning it on Sunday at 5 p.m.
Sunday at 5. All right. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's a 5-day rental, which normally is calculated as a 7-day rental, as a weekly rental rate.
Okay.
When you go past 4 days to 5, usually the computer systems will recalc that into a weekly.
Okay.
So when you're looking at the car rental breakdown, this is Hotwire you were looking at?
Yes.
So when you look at that, are they still quoting you a daily rate, or does it convert it to a weekly?
It was still a daily rate. So
right. So that may be where you're getting clobbered. If I could make a suggestion, go use the site, either Expedia or Rental Cars, and see how they build rates for the Wednesday 9 a.m., Sunday 5 p.m. return.
Okay.
And see if it doesn't recalculate those as weekly rental rates that would hopefully be cheaper than that Hotwire rate.
Okay.
Often with daily calculation, you end up overpaying once you hit that 5th day, because 5 is considered to be the same as 5, 6, 7.
Got it. Okay.
So as far as it jumping from 158 to 249, a jump of, is that $91 for those additional hours?
Correct.
That's crazy, because normally when you go over hours, once the over hours equals or exceeds the daily rate, it just converts to an additional day.
That's what my understanding was too.
So it could be a mistake in the computer calculation on Hotwire's part.
Okay.
But that's why I would go try multi-company search engines like Expedia and RentalCar.com.
Okay. I will definitely give that a try.
All right, and then have a great time. Where are you going in Wisconsin?
We are going to Manitowish Waters, Wisconsin. It's about 4.5 hours north of Milwaukee.
Wow.
Beautiful up there.
Well, have a great time, and you need really thick sleeping bags, right? Because it gets cold at night.
It's going to be cold, but we always have a great time.
All right. Well, I hope it is wonderful. And James joins us. Hello, James. Welcome to the Clark Howard Show.
Hey, Clark.
James, you are a pharmacist.
Yes, sir.
Do we also add the word overworked before pharmacist? Because I know a lot of pharmacists are really, they're burning out from extra long shifts and hours.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty fair description.
Well, we got to fix that, don't we?
Yeah, that's a big ask.
Okay. Well, how can I be of service to you?
Well, you had mentioned a little while back about how switching to generic medications can save patients a lot of money. Just wanted to say I really appreciate you mentioning that. It's something that is, as long as it's been around, it seems like folks still sometimes aren't aware of it. I did want to add to that. There are a couple ways if that pharmacists can actually help out past the generic switch. Sometimes they can actually switch you to a totally different medication by working with the doctor based on what the insurance company covers better or what's cheaper. So sometimes you can treat a condition with multiple medications. And a pharmacist is trained and capable and licensed to actually talk to you about those things. So just when you go pick up your meds at the pharmacy, if you say, hey, these are really expensive, I'm having a hard time affording them, or do I really need to pay this much, they can actually look at that and work with you and your insurance company and your doctor to get you on something cheaper.
And that's what's referred to, I think, as therapeutic substitution?
Yes, sir. Many states refer to it that way.
So just as a practical matter, what I said with overworked and pharmacists being together, do pharmacists, with the pressure that you're under to do so many prescriptions per hour and per shift, can pharmacists realistically take the time to do that and not get in trouble with their employers?
It depends on where they work. So that was something that I was going to add in, is usually pharmacists at wholesale clubs or pharmacists at box within a box type stores. So retail chains that have a pharmacist inside or a pharmacy inside the main store. A lot of times they're not subjected to the same pressures as folks working at a strict pharmacy chain. I know that because I worked for both.
All right. So what you're saying is fascinating. You're saying that if somebody goes to one of the giant pharmacy chains where the pharmacists are on that hamster wheel, that they're under such productivity pressure, they can't do what you're talking about they could do at a warehouse club or at a discount store.
Yeah, there are always exceptions to that rule, but in my experience, when I've worked for the box within a box or if I've worked for a locally owned independent store, they normally can make that kind of time. And of course, like any relationship, with a doctor, developing a good relationship with a specific pharmacist or pharmacy staff, if you build that relationship over time, just like if you have your family doctor, they can get to know you.
Well, you are so right. And by the way, you mentioned something I should have mentioned. That is the independent pharmacist that always tests so well in customer service research. Michael is with us on the Clark Howard Show. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Clark. How you doing?
Great, thank you. You have a 3-year-old who's already ready to start saving money like crazy. What kind of job does your 3-year-old have?
He is pretty much an eater and a crier, and that's about it.
So he's a typical 3-year-old.
There you go.
Well, what are you trying to do for him with money?
Well, I really want to get something going. I know there's the 521 or 529 savings plan for college.
Yes.
And I was really wondering if that is something transferable if we move to another state.
Yes, completely. Unless there are a small number of states that have a prepaid tuition plan, which is a form of a 529 plan, and those transfer very unfavorably to a different state. But a traditional 529 plan, which is one that is an investment plan that you put your money in, it grows tax-free, it's spent tax-free, is usable in any of the 50 states for school, and you're eligible once a year that, let's say you don't end up liking your state plan, you're allowed, even as you remain a resident of your state, you're allowed to move the money to a different state plan. And it's completely tax and penalty free to do that.
Okay.
And have you seen my 529 plan guide?
I have not, no, sir.
I have at Clark.com my list of the best plans in the country, and I have hyperlinks because a number of states have multiple plans, and they may have 2 good plans and 3 bad plans or something like that. So I've got a link to the best plan available in each state.
Okay.
Now, college is one thing. What are the odds that in your family culture, is your 3-year-old going to college no matter what?
I wouldn't pressure him to do it. I'm going to encourage him to do it, but I'm just hoping he will.
The reason I ask that is, with the 529s, they're great unless a kid doesn't go to college and you don't have another child you can move the money to, because the tax treatment of 529 money is great if it's used for eligible college expenses, and it's plain rotten if it's not used for college.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask if there was something else besides that.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because if the odds favor your child going to college, then you just go ahead and do the 529 because it's the best choice for a kid. But my preference is always for you to save the maximum you can in your own name first before you look at options that might be available or put money aside for a child. And my default go-to is that you and your bride should be saving the maximum under the law in a Roth IRA before you even consider putting money in a 529 for your child.
Okay.
Because the Roth has so much flexibility to it, and it grows tax-free, and then you spend it tax-free in retirement.
Okay. And
that would be a choice I would do way before I would start looking at other things to put money aside for your son.
Okay. And that Roth, whenever, let's say it's time to use it for college, would that be tax-free also?
So there's an interesting twist with the Roth. If you, 15 years from now, want to use some of that money for your son's college, as long as you leave the earnings of it behind, you can pull your contribution money out tax and penalty free.
Oh, okay.
So it provides an additional level of flexibility that you don't have with the 529 plan.
Thanks for listening to the Clark Howard Podcast. Download new episodes every Monday through Friday at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com. Stay tuned for the latest AP news headlines from Podcast One right after this. When shopping for car insurance, consider this. Geico has been saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years. So if you're serious about savings, it's simple. Go to geico.com. After 75 years, they know how to save you money.
AP Update. I'm Sandy Kozel. The FBI is warning state officials to boost their election security in light of evidence that hackers targeted related data systems in 2 states. AP correspondent Bree Fowler reports that many companies and governments are researching vulnerabilities in state election systems.
A lot of people think that online voting and online voting registration is the way of the future as more and more people do more and more online. But hacking is always a risk. But then again, you can have voter fraud the old-fashioned way, too. Whether it's, mysterious absentee ballots or reports of people that are deceased voting, there's always questions when it comes to elections.
The FBI didn't name the states that were targeted, but state election websites in Illinois and Arizona experienced hack-related shutdowns earlier this summer. AP Update. I'm Sandy Kozel.